Hey everyone, it's Nick with NJ Valenti Art, and in today's video we're going to go over the basics of lighting. I'll share some of the basic techniques of lighting and form and how it can take your art to the next level. Let's get started. So coming in here and taking a look at the sphere that I've set up, let's talk a little bit more about how the light is interacting with the sphere and giving it its form. So we have our light coming in from this direction here, so it's hitting the sphere right there, and that's the specular highlight. So that is where the light source is closest to the object. It will be the brightest point as well. Here it's a little more subdued because this is more of a matte object. If there's say a shiny metal ball or something like that, that would be really crisp white dot there. But the light's coming in, hitting this portion of the sphere. And as we did in our last video, the drawing basics video, where we were taking our sphere and we were our circle and then turning it into a sphere by adding this form to it, right? And how it curves around here in space. As the light hits the top part here, the light's going to be going down, wrapping down and around the sphere. As this light transitions to darkness, and this line that you could see here where it becomes light and then dark right here, this is called the terminator line. And that's where the light actually falls off and transitions to the shadow side. And then this whole section here will pretty much be our main shadow shape for the sphere. And then what we end up having here at the very bottom is some bounced light or reflected light. And this comes about from light that is coming all around our object here and is being bounced up off the ground and back up onto the object, which will give us a little bit of lighter section down here at the bottom, and that is our reflected light. Our cast shadow is simply the shadow that the object is casting on whatever it may be on or next to. So say here, for instance, it's just the ground, so the light is coming in against the layer here, hitting these edges here, and then it's creating this cast shadow on the ground. If we had an object here, say this was a wall, this shadow would then come up the wall and be cast on the wall as well. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at how that actually works on some other shapes as well. So take our cylinder here, for instance. Our light source is up here. The main light will be hitting this side here and then transitioning around. Come over to our pixel persona here. So the light is hitting this front section here and wrapping around the form. As the light transitions to shadow, so that line there, that is our terminator line. You can see our core shadow shape here. And then we have our bounce light again on this other side. One way we could go ahead and determine the actual length of the cast shadow, taking into account where our light source is, considering we have it right here. All that we're doing, come back to our layer here, is our main light source, and then it's just hitting the top, and where that line goes down will be where and how long that cast shadow is. Say, for instance, we had get a little bit closer, it would significantly shrink that cast shadow. Okay, so the cast shadow length is judged by the distance of the light from the furthest point of that shape there that you're working with. Taking a look at another shape that we have here, our square. This one's a little more straightforward since everything is just a hard edge. It doesn't wrap around. The light's not wrapping around, so it's really just going to be hitting the main side of our square here. As it turns around this sharp edge, it won't be getting any light here, and our darkest shadows will be on the back side, on that other side of the square here that we can't see, okay? And then we have our cast shadow, which again you'd be able to determine by placing the light, if the light source was up here as opposed to just the front, and then the top here would be getting a little bit less light. So this square is a little more straightforward. Wherever the light is hitting is getting the most light. Even if it was to be coming in from up here and hitting, say, right this edge right here, you would almost typically then, this would be your lighter side, and then this would have a little less light. This is just a way to, another shape just to take a quick look at and see how it is affected when it hits a hard-edged object like this and it makes those sharp 90-degree angled turns. And we've got our sphere here again, just kind of reiterate what we've already talked about. Also, I'll have each one of these slides available on my Patreon page, linked in the description below. They will be available for free, so you could download them, keep them as reference, or do little draw-overs on them if you'd like as well. But again here, you know, we're looking at the sphere, smooth surface, so it's got those smooth transitions, unlike the square we were just looking at that's got those sharp 90-degree angles. So we have our light coming in here, diffusing down and around the sphere. As that light transitions to shadow, we've got our terminator line and our main shadow shape. And then we've got our bounce light on the back side here, picking up the light of the ground. All right, so let's go ahead and create a couple of spheres. We'll do it a couple of different ways. First, let's come over to designer persona here. I'm going to create a nice circle here. Okay, I'm going to come back over to pixel persona quick. I'm going to create a pixel layer and I'm dragging into our ellipse shape here. I'm also going to set that to multiply. Come in here and get a nice purple coat there. I've got for the brush just a round light brush. So this is almost kind of like a an airbrush. I'll just make this brush a little bit larger here. So again, keeping in line with how we were creating the cross contours in our drawing exercises video and the basics drawing video as well, we're going to ahead and do the same here for this shadow shape. I'm just going to feather it in there, get a little bit lighter of a touch as it gets closer to the bottom there. I can kind of come back in here and make that a tad darker. I'm going to create another layer, and we're going to want to get a lighter blue, and then we could just kind of right there. So that's a real quick and easy way to kind of create a sphere that didn't take us too long at all. We just got our basic circle shape in there, and using an airbrush, came in with the shadow shape. I'm leaving a little at the bottom here for our reflected light. And then we have our specular highlight there. Couple things that we could do. If you wanted to diffuse this specular highlight a little bit more, we could always use a blur technique. Kind of blur it out and make it a little more subtle if we wanted. Another thing we could do if we want to create our cast shadow, we could duplicate this ellipse. Moving back into our vector persona here, flatten it, turn the whole thing to multiply. We'll get rid of these intersections. I'll just select a darker color here. And then we'll have our cast shadow as well. We can also create a full vector sphere. Again, we'll start with a circle. Or our same blue here. And then we could go, we'll start with a gradient. And change that gradient to radial. I'm going to come in here and we're going to make our a little bit brighter, a little bit closer to white there. And then for our shadow, shadow shape just a bit darker, okay? So now you can really see that light is hitting that spot and then how the light would then fall around the sphere and slowly take over the sphere shape, see? So this is a cool way to kind of demonstrate how that light would react depending on different areas if it hits a different spot on the sphere. So I'm sticking to where we kind of had it before. Add a little bit more. Do that. Now what I usually like to do is I'll come in here and I'll really try to emphasize that shadow shape a bit more. Get it back into, come down here. We'll get rid of the stroke on that. We'll go with a light purple shape again. Multiply. I'm going to drag this into our ellipse shape. And once I'm in here, I can kind of move it around and adjust aspects of it and make this a little bit more round. Move it just a bit. And what I'll end up doing here is I'll come up to our quick effects and blur. And I'll really just blur that out. Another thing we could do is if you want to take the transparency tool, kind of control that transparency a little bit more. By doing that, see right now we have our solid shadow shape, and we even have our bounce light at the bottom as well. You can, like I said, play with the transparency tool a bit. This would essentially just almost add a little more bounce light in there. I'm going to remove that for now. I can also come in here if I wanted to make a brighter spot. Make this all white. Turn the orientation of it a bit there, and then this is another spot where I'll come in and I'll use Gaussian blur to really just blow out that spot, depending on, you know, do I want it to be a harder, tighter point, so something more metallic, or really just have it get blown all the way out. But we'll just do something like that, just give it a little bit of a sheen. Drag this into the ellipse as well. There you go. If we wanted to create our shadow shape, we'll drag that outside the layer. And there you have it. That's a way to light a sphere in Vector. I hope you found this intro to lighting video helpful. You can download these worksheets for free on my Patreon page, which I will have linked in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss any future videos. Until next time.